are you doing?
Filming?
Pictures of us?
Yeah.
Can I get your badge number?
0016.
Go.
Is it shiny enough for you?
It's very shiny, sir.
All right. Give me your driver's license, Mr. Fifth Amendment right.
You filming right now?
I am.
How come?
He's got the camera on. He's got the camera on me right now as we're talking.
All right. Do we have Andrew Henderson on the line? Have we called him yet? I'm looking for someone from the studio. Have we called him yet? Okay. Andrew, are you there?
Yes, I am, sir. How are you doing tonight?
Good. Thank you very much. Doing fine. Well, it's
Sure.
been a busy day for you, hasn't it?
It has. It has. I've been dealing with a lot of stuff going on here in the cities ever since last night. I haven't slept in over 24 hours. But
Oh, really?
getting stuff done. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, so what have you been doing? You've been covering the shooting. Who was the young man that was killed?
The young man, his name is, give me 1 second here. I should have this right at the top
I
of my
should have
head,
had it
but
too.
don't.
I apologize. so much going on that kind of forget that.
Mr. Castile.
Okay, that's right.
Yes.
So, what have you been doing over this last 24 hours? What have you been looking for? Where have you been?
Well, I have been scouring the internet for as much information as possible, talking with different activists all around the Twin Cities and the state. I've been to the police department for the St. Anthony, St. Anthony Village, seeing what I could find there, and doing a little protest over this. They really didn't like me there. I was writing with chalk outside their police department, and they
On the sidewalk.
quickly made it known that I was not welcome, and they erased all my nice little chalk words for them.
Sure. So you can, obviously you've been through the process. You can write chalk on sidewalk, and that's okay.
Perfectly legal. First Amendment right
Yeah,
there.
and they have every right to take it off too, right?
Sure. Yep.
So, okay. So what have you found out about this case, or what has drawn your interest to this?
Well, a couple things have drawn my interest to this. First of all, I pretty much grew up in the area where this happened, the Como Park area, right by the state fairgrounds. I've been up and down that road thousands of times in my life, literally thousands. That street right there is a revenue generation hotspot for the St. Anthony Police Department. They hand out more municipal citations there than anywhere else.
It's
People,
a very long block and straight and wide.
Yes. I mean, there's no stoplights or stop signs for a long time. They hide out. They often get people for no headlights, no taillights, something like that. I myself have even been pulled over on that stretch, very, very close to where this incident happened.
Why am I not
for having a headlight
surprised?
out. So
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's what drew my attention. And then second of all, I talked to Diamond, the passenger in the vehicle. I didn't talk to her, but I had someone else talk to her for me.
All right.
And threw her a video and a picture of the officer that pulled me over. And she confirmed that was the officer that also pulled her over.
Okay.
So the officer's name has not been released yet, but Diamond says that this is the officer that pulled her over and shot Mr. Castile.
So in one sense, you're saying this is kind of a spot for the police officers or St. Anthony to gain revenue.
Yes, very much so.
And that's their intent. So they're not really looking at an assumption they're not really looking at protecting and serving, but to really try to find any way they could get some revenue.
Yes, definitely. And another thing that really struck me about this is the Second Amendment right issue. I mean, us as human beings have a natural right to protect ourselves. You know what I mean?
Right.
And especially this gentleman, he had, the constitutional right under the Second Amendment. He had his permit to carry legally. Mm-hmm. He was not a criminal. He had no criminal record. He worked at a school with children. You know, this is a stand-up individual. And, you know, there is no reason that a police officer should shoot someone for simply exercising, you know, their God-given right to defend themselves. You know, he wasn't aggressive towards this officer. As far as I know, his weapon was always holstered. He never pulled it out of the holster. You know, he was reaching for his concealed carry permit when asked. That's so far as the narrative. Mm-hmm. You know, it didn't seem like he was being argumentative or anything like that.
He was asked to produce the concealed carry permit?
Yes, that's what Diamond says, that the officer asked to see it.
Okay.
And, you know, under Minnesota state law, if an officer asks to see your permit, you have to produce it.
Right.
So he was reaching for that, and according to Diamond, the officer just pulled his gun and shot 5 bullets into him. Just
for actually, doing what he was ordered to do.
Right.
So something went wrong with protocol there, it seems to me. I mean, it seems to me if you know, and I think all police officers, and this is what I've been told, assume when they pull somebody over that it's a felony stop, and that they assume that there's a gun on everybody. And so when somebody tells you that they have a gun, I mean, why should that shouldn't raise any more alarm than if somebody says I don't have a gun.
Right. I mean there's you know, thousands of people in Minnesota carrying guns every single day. You know? And these legal gun owners that have their permits are not the ones committing crimes, are not the ones murdering people. You know, these aren't the people that we have to worry about.
And if someone's going to shoot a police officer, they probably would do it before they get to the car.
Yeah,
as they're there.
Yeah, they wouldn't notify the officer that they have a gun. You know, if I was going to murder somebody, I probably wouldn't, you know, give them a warning of what I have and where it is and all that.
Right. But even if somebody did, as this guy did, I would still, as a police officer, be concerned and be attentive. You know, I wouldn't have a trigger finger, though. You know,
absolutely not.
Something went wrong.
Yeah, it might be his training. I mean, many officers are trained to, you know, think that they're in danger, you know, all the time. But last year was the second safest year in American history for police officers. I mean, it just keeps getting safer and safer. So there really is no reason to fear the average citizen. I mean, I can understand if you're going into like a bank robbery or something like that, but the average citizen is very unlikely to harm a police officer.
Well, and this police officer, to be fair, wouldn't know he was an average citizen until he heard, I have a permit to carry.
Right.
You know, then you would know this person is average and probably above average. You know, going through that type of class. And here's a person who's been trained in the protocol of what to do when stopped by a police officer. And there's a police officer who's been trained in the protocol of how to handle that type of situation. And it seems to me that the police officer didn't handle the situation correctly. I think personally I would have had the guy get out of the car, keep his hands up, have him get out of the car, and then search him.
Right. Take his weapon away just for officer safety for a little bit, and you know, make sure he has all his, you know, his proper credentials, and you know, complete the traffic stop, give him back his weapon, and let these people be on their way. Right.
Well, I also think something else is going on here, besides your point that you're making there in the Second Amendment right. I also think the courts are kind of complicit in this in lowering the standard for what's required for a search. This is a tail light out, you know, and police officers are going and looking for drunk driving. They're looking for drugs. They're searching. They're doing an investigation even with the tail light out.
Yeah. I mean, they're looking for cash, anything that they can, you know, find, you know, stuff for civil asset forfeiture.
Right.
I mean, this goes pretty deep.
Yeah, and that's and so with our court saying, you know, stop anybody, you don't need a warrant anymore, you can check later to see if they got warrants out for their arrest, you know, and oops, if you made a mistake, so what? I mean, that's our Supreme Court 2 weeks ago came down with a decision like that. And so, I mean, with the police officers knowing that the courts have given them a lot more leeway, more of this type of thing, I think, is going to happen.
Sure, yeah. I mean, especially if they see a young black male, you know, that they think, you know, looks a little different and might have, you know, some plant matter or, you know, something illegal on him. It raises the chances of a search being done.
Right. Yeah, and from everything I can tell in that video that I'm not going to show, maybe later, but the guy looked like just a very clean-cut, straightforward guy. And
Oh yeah, definitely. You know, like I said, he worked at a school.
right, St. Paul Public
You know?
Schools. So we thought it was rough at St. Paul Public Schools, but it's just a tragedy to say this.
Right.
And Diamond's composure was unbelievable.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I don't think I could have handled myself in a situation.
No,
But
no.
but there's one thing I want to bring up about
Okay.
About Diamond's treatment. She was actually transferred to the Roseville Police Department, held there without food, water, and without access to legal counsel. for
Oh,
hours.
really?
Yes.
For how long?
I believe it was until like 5 a.m.
And she didn't get any food? And when did the shooting take place?
Oh, it was,
Early afternoon?
I want to say, yeah, it was evening-ish is what I think. But yeah, I mean, so she was held for hours upon hours, you know, and her daughter. I mean, you know, a little girl was held.
And I know they have food there, and it's ready.
Yeah.
And for them not to get any, of course, you being in jail or being housed in a holding cell, don't know what your rights are. You're not expecting this, so you don't know to ask for food, but you shouldn't have to. That's something they should be very well aware of.
Sure. I mean, yeah, you're in their custody. You know, you're their responsibility for that short period of time.
And so she asked to see call an attorney, but they wouldn't give her one.
Yeah, she was not allowed to call anybody. No, you know, she couldn't call family. She couldn't call an attorney. Nothing.
Wow. Until she got out?
What's that?
Until she got out? That's not at all. And they interrogated her during this time, right?
Right. Yeah. So they were asking her questions, and they from her words, they wanted her story to match their story, and she would not comply with that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
You know, I suppose I'd like to close on one simple thought, that if you or I were to shoot another person, we'd immediately be arrested, and our names would be all over the news, and it would be public information almost instantly.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, if you have that badge on your chest, you know, your name isn't released until your employer, you know, the police department, can figure out some kind of legal defense before they release your name.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's a huge double standard and shows just an incredible lack of transparency.
Well, you're right, and it's also shows how our Constitution's been turned on its head, where the citizens are to have the rights and the government's to be restricted, where we're supposed to know everything that's going on and the government's not supposed to know everything that's going on. So total turn on its head there.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Andrew.
Thanks again for having me on your show. I totally appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate the work you're doing out there and trying to help people protect themselves.
Awesome. Well, have a good night,
All
sir.
right. You too. All right. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay. If you did not see Diana Longry's show last night, Off the Record News, which, by the way, there's no such thing as being off the record. Communities United Against Police Brutality was on the show, and there is a petition out there to try to, in Minneapolis, to get on the ballot that police officers have and pay for their own insurance. Because when these type of things, you get police officers with histories of abuse and going beyond, and if they paid for their own insurance, some of these insurance companies would say, hey, no, this person has a record, we're not going to insure them, or we're going to raise their rates to a level that may be unaffordable. But right now, most cities have insurance for, or they cover their insurance themselves. In other words, they're self-insured, is what I want to say. They're self-insured, so the city just covers the cost of whatever lawsuit settlements they have, which can be a lot, but I think it's kind of a good idea that police officers have to pay for some coverage themselves, or the city has to pay for the coverage themselves, so that there could be another form of checks and balance on our government. And for those officers that have a record, a history of misbehaving, you know, it's another form of accountability.
If I end up on YouTube, I'm going to be upset.